Okay. So let me propose you to start the second session, which is also very linked to the most important topics on the European agenda. The title is Reshaping Education and Training, Navigating IEQ and Digitalization. So for this session, we will have four speakers. I was asked by my team to precise exactly what are the rules for the presenters, for the lecturers. So each of our speakers will have 15 minutes for their presentations, and in the end we will have again a short open discussion about the topics presented. So the first speaker, speaking about Built-Up Skills Initiative, is Amandine de Coster-Lacour, who is a project advisor at CINEA, overseeing energy efficient building projects funded by Horizon 2020 and LIFE Clean Energy Transition Programs. She is also coordinating the Built-Up Skills Initiative, and prior to this job she worked at the European Commission's Research and Innovation Directorate General and in the renewable energy sector. So Amandine, you have the floor.
Thank you, good morning. So thank you for the nice introduction, and indeed my aim in the next 10 to 15 minutes is to give you an overview of what we've been doing through this initiative. But maybe first a few words about our agency, in case you don't know us already. So CINEA, the Climate, Infrastructure and Environment Executive Agency, we are Brussels based. We are supporting the European Commission in the implementation of the Green Deal. And we do this through mostly program management. We are managing 7 funding programs that you can see listed on this slide. Our operational budget is about 65 billion euros for the current programming period. As you can see, all these programs, they are closely connected to the Green Deal, to the green transition of our economy. I highlighted in particular the LIFE program because this is where currently the support for energy efficient buildings is being channeled. But you can see that we are also funding many other types of activities. So essentially we are active in program management, we are active in the whole project cycle, supporting beneficiaries, but importantly we are also feeding back the results from the project to the policymakers. The LIFE program, I'm sure you are familiar with it, at least when it comes to nature and biodiversity or circular economy or climate mitigation and adaptation. But what is new since 2021 is the pillar on clean energy transition. And here the objective is really to raise the barriers to this clean energy transition, to remove market barriers. Really, we are not looking at technology, we are really addressing market barriers, mobilizing investment, improving skills, raising awareness, educating and empowering. So let's now come to the subject of this session, skills, upskilling. Build Up Skills was launched in 2011. It has been funded through successive programs, Intelligent Energy Europe, then Horizon 2020, and currently LIFE Clean Energy Transition. We have funded already 94 projects, so it's quite a substantial pipeline. A bit more than 58 million euro funding since 2011. So what are these projects delivering? Essentially 3 different things. First of all, what we call skills intelligence. So if you want, it's really drilling into the skills gaps, so identifying what is missing and formulating measures to address these gaps. Then we also look into skills development, and that's about developing new qualification and training schemes to address the emerging skills that we need for this clean energy transition. And lastly, but importantly, we also support skills uptake. And that's about creating the conditions for skilled professionals to be recognized, to be actually valued. Because we also noticed that it's not sufficient to just supply skills to the market, new trainings. It's all very nice, but you may also end up in a situation where trainings that are free of charge are not attended, and then you need to address this by creating the demand. So Build Up Skills is very much a sectoral initiative. As such, we are feeding into wider policy instruments, such as the EU Skills Agenda, the Pact for Skills, or the Construction Blueprint that was mentioned earlier this morning. So in terms of outputs, I would say this initiative has really been successful in piloting a whole toolbox of approaches. And I mentioned a few elements here. So in terms of skills intelligence, we have funded a lot of national skills strategies for the building sector. First of all, gathering all the key stakeholders around the table, developing status quo analysis, so really the mapping of the skills and the skills gaps, and then developing roadmaps of measures to address the gaps. In terms of skills development, clearly a lot of new qualification and trainings, innovative training approaches as well were piloted, and training of professionals and trainers. I'd like to make it clear that this initiative is not about funding the mass-scale rollout of training, because we are not in that level of funding that would allow for this. We are really piloting new approaches, new elements in terms of, let's say, skills engineering. When it comes to skills uptake, we had also many projects looking at boosting the recognition and demand for professionals, and this can take many forms. For example, awareness campaigns, skills passport, registries of skilled professionals to make them more easily identifiable. But also a lot of projects are now working on piloting legal clauses that can be integrated in public procurement to make the link between skills, training and qualifications, and the procurement process. Some results, in case you want to know more, these are from Horizon 2020 projects. I think that's an important slide. This is the currently the national teams we are funding to update their national roadmaps to 2030. So back in 2011, we have done already this work to map the gaps and to develop a roadmap to 2020, and now we have a number of country teams that are working on the update of the national roadmap to 2030 to address emerging skills, to address also the professions that are most critically in need of upskilling. I think this can be very interesting for you, so if you click on the link, you will reach the project page and you can see what is being done in a specific country, and they have already developed or updated the status quo part, so really the part on the skills gaps. I think that can be quite interesting for you. Of course, I'm aware that today's discussion is also a lot about digitalization, so I also picked a few examples of what these projects have delivered in this field. So we had quite some projects working on building information modeling. As we know, this can be also a tool to accelerate the learning process. For example, in BIMplement, the team piloted the use of BIM on-site for on-site training of blue-collar workers, which is not typically what we would think about when we speak about BIM. And this has been done at real renovation sites to improve the skills on ventilation and air tightness. and all the contractors reported a clear improvement of the performance after the training. In NetUBIEP, what is interesting are the guidelines for public authorities on using BIM, and also the team has developed a memorandum of understanding with Building Smart International, so they will integrate the project's qualification scheme into the BSI personal recognition framework, which will then be available worldwide. And then in RISE, which started with the previous project, BIMCert, a gamified training platform, and also a CPD scheme based on micro-credentials and blockchain, which can really accelerate the way both blue and white collar professionals will be learning about the use of BIM in general and BIM for energy efficiency in particular. Very briefly, we also have a couple of projects that are just starting now. So these ones are from Live City, and they will look at skills for smart energy solution in buildings. And what is also interesting is that also the training methods they will use will draw on the latest developments, such as augmented reality, virtual reality, mixed reality. So they will try to make the training more attractive also in this way. Of course, digitalization can be a learning subject, but it's also an enabler of the learning process. And that's what we've seen with a very successful series of projects that came up with this app. It's available actually on Google Play and the App Store, the Build Up Skills Advisor app, which has areas on construction, installation, and real estate. Then you can drill into the specialties, and then you access personalized, you have personalized recommendation on the learning course you would be able to follow. You have also e-learning modules, for example, learning on the mistakes. So you have to identify where the mistakes are made in a specific situation. And you can also draw your own gap analysis, which will then lead you to a certain training pathway. So what we can see is that indeed with digitalization we can be more specific in the recommendations we give to the learner, what kind of pathway they should follow. So this can be very, very helpful. I think another good example is in Train for Sustain project. Is to facilitate the comparison of skills and competencies, which is also something that is quite critical if we want to make the market more transparent and then also enable mobility of workers. So what these guys have done, they developed a competence quality standard, which is like a huge catalog covering potentially all the skills in the energy performance of buildings. And it's been validated as a SEN workshop agreement. You have the link here. I would recommend you have a look. I think it's quite impressive. And the way it's structured, it has 4 levels. You've got thematic fields, macro areas of expertise, and learning outcomes. This is getting better. So you go really deeper in the subject, and then, as you can see at the bottom, you have the learning outcome that is described with the knowledge and the skill attached to it. Of course, the SEN workshop agreement is a document, it's static, but then they turn it into an online application, which you can see on the right-hand side in red. So you can assess your own skills and generate skills passports. And what is, I think, particularly interesting is that those skills passports then have been piloted in Catalonia as part of a procurement process. So to be able to assess in a streamlined manner the competence of the bidding teams. So this is just an example of how we can make this link between the skills and competence on the one hand and the procurement process. Very briefly, I also wanted to mention that we have a number of projects looking at circularity. In Bus Go Circular, the team will look at multifunctional green roofs, facade and interior elements. They will also look at procurement, and they already have a training pack that is available, so you can consult it. In Top Clever, Here the focus is really on whole life cycle approaches and operationalizing the skills aspect of the levels framework, if you want. So this one just started. Okay, this was supposed to have an animation, but I think this hasn't been carried away, so no problem. Just to remind you that we are also running the Builder portal, and this is the largest portal on energy efficiency and RES in buildings, with about 15,000 active members. It has really a lot of tools available for you. You've got thematic articles, technical articles. You've got the topic of the month. Last month was on indoor environmental quality, for example. Expert talks. They can help you in promoting your project results. They can support you in organizing a webinar, for example. So make sure to also to take advantage of it. Just to conclude, some takeaways. I will say my personal takeaways on this subject of skills after following this kind of projects for many years. Skills intelligence, definitely important. To know where to put the emphasis, because we cannot possibly do everything at the same time. And there I'd like to remind you that we have colleagues in Thessaloniki who are doing really a great job. So the CDFOP agency, they are really developing a lot of tools that are freely accessible on this. It's quite meta level, but then it can be really adapted to sector-specific needs. Another important point that we see coming back all the time, and I think it's been mentioned also earlier by Sylvia, the majority of companies in the building value chain, they are really micro-enterprises and SMEs. So there is a high opportunity cost to let your staff enroll in a training process. And that's time, essentially. So we need to come up with short and flexible upskilling opportunities, and clearly digital tools will help in that perspective. Also, we need to bring the training directly at the construction site. That's what we've seen. Classroom trainings can work for white collars especially, but when you're talking about blue collars, it's way more effective. You can really have it on site. As I said, supply of skills is not enough. It's all very nice. You can have a perfect qualification framework with the perfect training. You may not have the people. So that's why we think the work on procurement that has been developed in some of the projects is really promising. So we hope to see more of it. And maybe to say that in general, there are lots of tools already available on the market that have been tested by the projects. So now what we hope to see is a more massive rollout at national level to really scale up and to reach the level of intervention that we need. And in conclusion, I would say we'll have always some funding opportunities available. We'll continue to support the skills uptake in the building value chain, but also other topics on renovation, on financial engineering, on energy poverty. So please have a look at our website, especially on Live CET. We have a call closing in 2 days, so I don't think I need to present it, but we will have more opportunities coming up in a few months from now. So thank you very much, and happy to answer your questions later on.
Thank you, Anna. Thank you so much for your interesting presentation and informative presentation at the same time. The next speaker is our colleague from the REHVA board, Livio Mazzarella, professor at Politecnico di Milano. He delivers courses on green building energy systems, acoustics in buildings, and he has more than 200 research papers. And his work spans on renewable energy, thermodynamics, heat transfer, acoustics. Of course, he was involved in international research, and he has the leadership roles in HVAC and energy-related organizations. Of course, our federation on the first place, where he is vice president. So, Professor Mazzarella,
thank you for your presentation, nice presentation, and I will try to be on time. I had too many slides, but I was changing a bit. The first point is, what's the purpose of a building? Because it seems that we have forgot why we are going to build a building. And the protection, in my opinion, with indoor environmental quality. On the other way around, if you just focus at what it does mean indoor environmental quality, of course means a lot of things related to the well-being of the people inside. We have seen air quality, sound protection, etc., 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 etc. And a lot of topics which are also fitting inside the Sustainable Development Goal of United Nations, because we have to remember that we are looking for humans. The humans should be the center of our attention, not just the last point too. Then if just are looking to renovation only from the side of, let's say, sustainability, or better, from the side of the environmental sustainability, then the solution is quite simple. We can go back to caves and we have solved the problem. Okay? No energy consumption, no problem about other position. But the main problem is that we like to be in a comfortable and healthy environment. That means that when we look at renovation, we have to remember that there is not only the environmental sustainability, that means carbon footprint, that means just reduction of energy use and so on. But there is also other two fundamental pillars in the sustainability assessment. One is the economical, we know already, we use that. But the other one is so-called the social sustainability. And if you look to the standard, we have already standards about that the indoor environmental quality is a fundamental part of the social sustainability. Because, again, the humans are the first point in our goal. They must be satisfied. They need to have a good environment where to live, where to work. From the work point of view, we know that if you have a good environment, you can work better, then productivity is growing up. But also, if you live better in your house, you have less sickness, and then you can work better again. Then, if you look from the productivity point of view, it's anyhow better to have a good environment. Then I will not speak anymore about indoor environmental quality, because for me, is the starting point. Then what we have to do in our renovation path is that there is only sustainability if we take care of all three pillars, not only two of that. That means environmental sustainability and the so-called economic sustainability. Then coming back to the point of what is going on in Europe about the so-called European Green Deal, which was started in 2019. Of course, what we have seen, we have tried a lot to reduce the carbon footprint on any building to reach the net emission greenhouse gases in 2050, together with an economic growth decoupled from resource use. That means trying to save resource, still growing up, then changing the economy, circular economy, and so on. And no person and no place left behind. In the several action, we see that we have, of course, renovation of building, energy efficient building, which is strongly related to future job and skill training for transition, because we have seen already that when we are going to have different kind of system, you need different kind of skill for the people working in the field, from the designer to the, let's say, installer, etc., etc. But again, we have to remember that these two goals, the net emission of greenhouse gases and the economic growth, as together with the IQ improvement. On the other way around, we already have a solution, we go back to case. Very simple, very easy to explain, in my opinion. That means that's the reason for which, in my opinion, in the directive, it should be inside the IQ goal, because doesn't exist any building without IQ. Or we go back to the parameters. No? One example, I'm going to the students. What's the parameters are? It's just an example of the, let's say, egoism of one guy. That's all, the pharaoh. is not unuseful. Now, going back to the point, the European Green Deal and professions, what we know already has been said, that we need different skills, and then I would just run on this point to say that this year is the year of skills. There is a lot of activity. We have seen how much energy has pushed the Commission in trying to find different action to increase the reskill, the upskill. We will talk just later on. There is a pact for skill, is one of the several actions has been shown. What I'd like to just to stress that sectorial organization and educational and training providers are taken into consideration. And I would like to remember that REHVA could be one of these trainer providers together with the National Member Association. Then what's in our, let's say, associations and then in REHVA, which are fundamental federation of national associations based on professional in the field of HVAC and firms in the field of HVAC. What does mean then reskilling and upskilling? First of all, before we go into the detail of reskilling and upskilling, we have seen there is some research going on to try to identify what are the needs of the market in reskilling and upskilling. But we have to remember that in our field we have both the major level, that means the white collar and the blue collar, and we have to take care of both. Because it's unuseful that we upskill or reskill the designers, but then the installer doesn't know what they have to do. And on the contrary too. Then we have to consider what. And what's the difference for who is not aware about the upskilling and reskilling? Upskilling focuses on development of new requirements, new skills, new competence in the field, while instead the upskilling to grow up in a new field, while reskill is a new training, for instance, for an installer, which is moving from gas boiler installation to heat pump installation, has to be reskilled because it's quite different, the machine and what you have to do. Are both necessary? Yes, are both necessary. And if you look, for instance, to the directive itself, if will be still there, not deleted, because we never know. For instance, there is calling for hourly simulation calculation. It's quite different than the base, seasonal base or a monthly base. Also, for the designer, they have to learn what does mean to do that. Then we have also the analysis on the life cycle. What's life cycle? If you ask for a lot of designer that doesn't know what life cycle does means and how to apply and so on, this would be what we are looking for now, just right now. Energy performance contract is not something new, really new, the energy performance contract, but now there is a pushing for that, and still a lot of people doesn't know what it exactly means, how to manage an energy performance contract, because we need also measurement, etc., etc., etc. Digital skills. It's a nice word, but what does it mean? We will try to address, forget about soft skill. If you are going to look at, sorry, it's not, okay, it's here. If you are going to, stay quiet. If you are going to look at what you can find at the European level about digital skill, you can find such kind of map saying that we are a bit late in digitalization. But first of all, what does mean digitalization here? Here is mainly related if you are able to use internet, Googling, or if you're using a spreadsheet, or if you're using Word, or whatever, etc., etc. More general. What does mean for us, a digital skill? If you're asking to an architect, digital skill is just building information management system. If you are going to ask to an HVAC engineer, the answer would be, smart building. Because inside smart building there is quite a lot of things. Of course, Internet of Things, sensor, monitoring, artificial intelligence, augmented reality, etc., etc., etc. A lot of tools. Of course, doing that you can have better indoor environmental quality. Okay? Because you can control all parameters. you can update, you can inform the user, etc., etc., etc. And this is what we have to go through, no? And you can have, of course, the impact of digitalization. This kind of digitalization building is calling for smart sensor, for smart component in HVAC system. That means a lot of new skills, because you have to put together the, let's say, I would say, mechanical knowledge with the electronic knowledge, with the intelligent, let's say, artificial intelligent knowledge, I would say, between brackets, okay? Artificial intelligence, because it's a very large word. But anyhow, you see that you have a lot to do. You can have adaptive, controlled, and that means smart HVAC system. That means, for me, sustainable system. Again, in the general context of sustainability, with the social sustainability need, not only energy saving, but also comfort. Then remote monitoring and so on. Mobile-friendly technology, which is also to satisfy the client, to show what is going on, to control. I can control my system. I don't say what the firm, but I can do by here, from here in Milan, with my smartphone. Sometimes it's, yeah, it's a bit. Okay, then you can have virtual reality application. Can be used, already said, for both training, for new skills, or can be also a way to develop new skills. Who has to develop that is not just an informatic people. Should be a guy who knows something about HVAC, or not around, nothing will work, and so on. There are the movie there, but there is no time to go through to show virtual reality application in the HVAC field. But going to the hand, you can see something there. What is doing REHVA? REHVA like to try to be in this field of reskilling, upskilling, together with the national member, no? Trying to bridge the qualification gap. What's up? Welcome. Thank you. Yeah, but this one. Here a presentation, okay? Next is a bit, we have to update the computer. It's a bit small in the power that I'm trying to change the slide, but doesn't change the slide. But anyhow, I can say, waiting this slide, show what we like to do. We like, of course, to try to work at European level, to produce courses in reskilling, upskilling, starting from the white collar, and we'll see later to go down to the blue collar, trying to have an harmonized qualification scheme. Then this will be applied also on the national level using our network, our, let's say, member association, to customize country by country, because we know the directive has a large flexibility, and the implementation in each country will be a little bit different. And then in that way, you should have national organization customizing and for each country to be really effective, and to move at that level to the blue collar level together. Well, it's Zambia. It's not able to go ahead.
Probably because of the movies you integrated in your
Yeah,
presentation.
but I can try to, but it's
Maybe
computer.
just stop the presentation and go back then.
But it's complete, I cannot get out.
Escape.
I cannot get out. But anyhow, just to give, there was, you can see on the PDF attached also what we are doing right now. We decided to start with a basic course. You can skip and go on the later, just on the course. Here. This way. Okay. This is what I was saying. No, to work producing webinars to introduce the point, and then to eventually create also tools using the PPD Center, which is specialized in supporting the PPD, which is part of our family, and then training courses we can spread around using our national association. As I said, the practical example is that we decide now to start to create a professional course on building sustainability HVAC, how to calculate according to the requirement of the directive, the global warming potential. Okay? Then you have an idea here, just the course content, building sustainability definition, building life cycle, and so on, all the same framework for the calculation, and then the LCA study, what does mean, several phases, and then what is the requirement of the PPD recast, which focuses only on one environmental sustainability indicator among, if I remember well, 13, and then the level framework, which is required by, and finally to get out with this small number at the end after a lot of work. And I can say here, and then I will not repeat, is still in the proposal of the directive because politicians have understood what does mean to calculate this number here. Thank you for attention. Sorry for any problem.
Thank you, Olivia. That's sure that we have a lot of information to share with the audience, and not only with this audience today. The next presentation is about a vision on reshaping renovation skills for digital IAQ shift. And the speaker is Spiros Mathiodakis, policy officer at the European Builders Confederation, which is the European professional organization representing national associations of construction, crafts, and micro, small, and medium-sized enterprises. And you work and you are focusing on sustainable construction policy in EU, including energy and environmental policies. He previously worked as an EU public affairs consultant in sustainability, so we are very willing to see your presentation.
Thank you very much. I hope you can all hear me. Also, good morning from my side. I will try to be mindful of time because we are running fast towards the next session and lunch. So, a few words on my organization, EBC. EBC is the European Builders Confederation. We represent construction SMEs and crafts at the European level. So, we are the organization that was founded in the 1990s, and we are based in Brussels. We have a few key objectives. First of all, we are a policy organization, so we are aiming to increase the understanding of the role of construction crafts and SMEs in Europe. And we are trying to ensure that the needs and the asks of construction SMEs are heard from policymakers in the European legislative process. So we defend the position of construction SMEs, and we are always trying to promote a coherent and comprehensive policy framework when it comes to construction in Europe. And that, of course, includes HVAC systems. Today we are in the house of REHVA. So there's a strong interconnection, of course, between construction and HVAC. And construction is a key sector of the EU. It represents around 10% of the EU GDP, and more than 99.9% of the companies are SMEs, among which 95% are micro companies, so they have less than 10 employees. EBC is made up of national associations and or federations. We have 19 members from 16 European countries, and represent all the possible trades of construction depending on the country, ranging from masons and carpenters to painters, HVAC professionals, and so on. So, as I said, EBC is a policy organization, and our first job is to speak for the needs and the perspectives of construction SMEs in the context of skills, including when it comes to digital skills. EBC is always pushing to facilitate a better system at European level, always being mindful that and this is something that we need to always have in mind when we're talking about skills in Brussels, is that the competencies of the European Union are very limited when it comes to skills, and an enormous amount of what can be done has to be implemented at national level. It was previously mentioned also by the representative of SINEA. It's something that it's always important to keep in mind. So that doesn't mean that we cannot do much in Brussels. There is a lot of things that can be done in Brussels, and something that we are pushing for, and that to a certain extent we are, I think, succeeding so far, is to at least introduce the narrative and the thought of the need for a more skilled workforce in European policies. And here I will be a little bit more specific. I'm talking about the Energy Efficiency Directive and the Energy Performance of Buildings Directive. In the Energy Efficiency Directive, we managed to include a number of provisions related to skills, and hopefully this will also be the case in the EPBD. And one of our main goals when it comes to skills is to have in mind always, and this is already happening, but it can be done even more, have in mind that there is going to be a need for financing of upskilling and reskilling, and that there is also a need to map the gaps and to map the gaps. It was mentioned previously that there are already some projects that are working on this, but we think that it's now an opportunity to do an effort also through national legislation at national level, and we're trying to have a mention of the need to map the skills gaps in the context of the Energy Performance of Buildings Directive. Then, moving on, it's important to ensure that mechanisms are in place to increase the skilled workforce. Like I said, mapping is not just is not enough. We will need to have a further effort at national level, because the overarching strategies of the EU, the European Green Deal, and the renovation wave. The renovation wave calls for a doubling of the renovation rate in Europe. So if we're going to double the renovation rate, we will need to have maybe not double the workers in the construction sector, but we will definitely need more workers. And at the moment, there is already a lack of skilled workers in construction. There is a massive gap of skilled workforce in countries like Spain, like France, even in Belgium. It's a cross-cutting issue, and we know that it's a cross-cutting issue also across the latitudes of Europe. We know that in Eastern Europe it's also a problem, in Western Europe it's a problem everywhere on the continent. So how do we do that? There is a need to shift the image of construction. Construction currently doesn't have the best image out there. People think it's difficult to work in construction. It's a heavy occupation, which is partly true, but at the same time there is enormous potential. There's enormous potential in the context of the green and digital transition. Digitalization is an aspect that can, if we manage to increase digitalization, it can also alleviate part of the heavy image of construction. So there is also a very interesting narrative, and I was discussing with some of you yesterday at the dinner. I saw a brilliant ad in the Brussels Metro the other day, and it was saying in French, fier de travailler dans la rénovation durable. So it was just construction workers with their equipment, and they were saying that they're proud to work in sustainable renovation. And I think this is a message that should be everywhere, not just in the Metro of Brussels on some poster. This is the narrative to attract more people in construction, and there is going to be a need for a lot of work in communication. And I say again, this cannot be just at Brussels level. It cannot be only at European level. There will need to be actions having in mind the local aspect. Then it's very important to promote dialogue between SMEs, between companies across member states, the exchange of best practices, because through best practices and not all best practices can be replicated everywhere, but many, they can be very useful across Europe. So dialogue is essential, and there is also a need of dialogue between construction and trading organizations, training providers, who we have discovered, and I will say a couple of words about some projects in which we were involved later on. We have discovered that training organizations, training providers are extremely diverse across Europe, because the competence for training and education is oftentimes national, but it can also be regional. It can be at city level sometimes. So it can be extremely diverse to whom you will speak when you're talking about training. In Germany, you might talk to the government of a land. In France, you will probably talk to the National Ministry of Education, but it's not sure, and so on and so forth. So it's quite complex, it's quite complicating, it's a very vast network, and there is a real need, and there's also an opportunity to have a little help in coordination at European level when it comes to that. Then, finishing, vocational education and training. CEDEFOP was mentioned earlier. This is also a very important aspect. A boost is needed also in that sense, and this is of course linked to what I was mentioning before, the attractiveness of the sector. Vocational education and training is not and should not be seen as the last resort, the thing you do when you fail. So it's something that is extremely valuable, it's enormously valuable for the sustainable transition. These workers are super needed right now, and I think this is a message that should be gotten across with a little bit more success in the next years, hopefully. I will go very fast, and because I saw it was already mentioned, and probably was already mentioned earlier today, I wasn't here. So the construction blueprint. EBC was a key partner of the construction blueprint, which was a major project running from 2019 to March last year. It was concluded with great success, and it involved 24 partners from 12 European countries, including the European Social Partner Organizations, FIEC, EBC, EFBWW, and the Spanish Paritaria Institution, which was the project coordinator, and a number of other actors across different member states. And the main objectives of the blueprint were to create a sector skills alliance and to develop several instruments to make the work of the project available to the wider public and to construction stakeholders. So you can see the final outputs of the project on the website, and there is quite a few resources that can be very interesting also for HVAC professionals, so I invite you to have a look. The final event was done last year in the context of the European Year of Skills, of which I'm sure you've all heard a word or two, and it was attended by the Commissioner for Jobs and Social Rights, Mr. Schmidt. A final word on another project in which EBC has been involved, the Pact for Skills in Construction, which is another flagship initiative of the European Commission. We have been happy to contribute to this effort, and the main output of the Pact for Skills is a commitment by construction industry that at least 25% of the industry's workforce will be reskilled, upskilled in the next 5 years. This is an ongoing challenge because, as you know, it's always challenging for companies to reskill and upskill their workers. It takes time, it takes money, and it takes even more time and even more money for small companies. Because when you have 100 workers, it's not the end of the world to send 2 of them for training, but when you have 5 workers, if you send 2 of them for training, you've lost 40% of your workforce for a week or for 2 weeks, and so on and so forth. So there also, there is a need for additional mobilization at European level. A final word, EBC has also been involved in a couple other projects that are relevant for digitalization more specifically. It's BIM4N and BIM Speed. BIM4N is quite a significant project that led to the development of many skills, of many tools that can be very useful for SMEs to take up BIM procedures in their own everyday work. For example, there is a tool that you can have on your phone where you take a picture of a drone or plan for a construction site and converts it directly into a PDF, and it inserts it into a BIM format. So there you can also find a lot of resources on the EBC website. I don't want to take any more of your time. Last word, because I know this is also relevant for REHVA. EBC is a founding member of SBS, Small Business Standards. And SBS is an organization, an Annex 3 organization within CEN, CEN-CENELEC, and SBS advocates for better standards for SMEs. So standardization is also going to be central in order to have a successful digital transition and digital skills for SMEs and for HVAC professionals in particular. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Spiros. I'm hurrying for the last presentation of this session. We will end this session at a very high level with a presentation about a project in Netherlands, Brain for Buildings, Dutch initiative, data-driven learning communities. Our speaker is Professor Laure Itar, Professor of Building Energy Epidemiology, Delft University of Technology. Her research group focuses on performance analysis, diagnosis and optimization of energy systems in operation at the level of buildings and the building stock.
Thank you very much, Katalin, for your introduction. I am also the scientific director of this Brains for Buildings project, that I'm going to tell you something about. Sorry, the right thing. Okay. How do I go further?
With the arrows.
Oh yes, it works very well, sorry. This Brains for Buildings project is a big project funded by the Dutch government. It's also a public-private collaboration. So 80% of the money comes from the government and 20 to 30% from overseas partners. We have 40 partners in total, so it's a really nice project, and the partners are very diverse. So not only universities and other knowledge institutions, but also consultants, installers, developers of product, and industrial associations. So it's a nice a group of people, and in this project we are working on the development of new methods to use data from smart meters, from building energy management system, from IoT, whatever, in order to have smarter buildings, helping reducing the energy consumption. Probably you all know that also in the best buildings we are wasting up to 30% of the energy. Also, we made different studies showing each time that also if the building seems to perform very well, there is always possibility to save even more energy and carbon emissions, of course. As was said before, comfort and people are essential, so we thought any smart building should also be able to cope well with the occupant and to adapt to user preferences. And of course, what we also want to do is to reduce cost on maintenance and to help installers to do on a more industrial way the needed maintenance. And another thing that we are working on is the energy flexibility, because we all want to be able to use solar energy, wind energy when possible. So the self-sufficiency of buildings should be increased. So in this research we have about 9 living labs. 4 or 5 are always continuously in use. And we have also what we have called use cases. And these use cases are cases brought in by the industrial partners in which they replicate or develop their own business cases based on the research done by others, let's say. The project is comprises 5 work packages. Work package 4, in fact, has been the most important up to now. It's about data integration. Because we all know all these different platforms that we have, it's very difficult to combine all different sources of data to something. So this is very important. I will tell something about it later. And if I now jump to work package 1, it's about self-diagnosing of installations, because they are becoming complexer and more complexer, so more prone to errors. So it becomes very important to be able to automatically detect where there are faults in the installation, and not only in components, but also in the energy use. Next to that, as said in work package 2, we are working on energy flexibility and intelligent control, model predictive controls. Work package 3 is all about the user. And finally, we have work package 5 about the learning community. And if now the learning community is data-driven or it is about data-driven methods, you can tell me after the presentation. I will give you a few examples how the learning community is working in practice, let's say. By the first example will be about the data integration platform. A 7-component architecture was developed because we said from the start, okay, it's completely impossible to develop a standard within this project. It's also not a good idea. But what we need is a kind of standard platform on which all data can be transformed to. For this, the BRIC platform was chosen because it's the most structured one. And what was developed is a way of transforming all data. So in existing business, the data may be BMS data from IoT, BIM models, but there are also new applications being developed, like fault detection, like model predictive control, energy flexibility. All these things must be combined in future. And how that goes, in fact, for the researchers, it's very difficult to start with something like that, because researchers at university, at school, they are doing their PhD, they are masters, they have no experience in companies. So the input from the industrial partner was essential to define how this architecture should work. Then after that, the TU Eindhoven made the development of the infrastructure, and it was tested on one of the buildings of the TU Eindhoven, and the test was very interesting, by which we see that other real estate companies working in the project, like the real estate of TU Delft or the one of Philips, are very interesting in the methods and try to do it as well. And that is a kind of living learning community this way, leading to new applications. A second example is about the smart user-centric interfaces and feedbacks, because of course a smart building is not only coping with occupants, but it should be able to receive feedback from occupants, and occupants should also be able to receive feedback from the equipment. Why is it working as it was? Why is the solar shades going down now and not on 30 minutes? So what you see here is that very different methods have been used and compared in different buildings. And when it comes to digital technology, I want to point out that methods using apps and QR codes leading to a website, for instance, are not the preferred one by the people working in the office. And it was very special that the preference was in the end on the censor vote button. So this is also something that we have to cope with in future. And in this, the learning community we discovered many different things. One of the most important things, maybe, and it was pointed out, I think, by Livio before, is that many of the knowledge about thermal comfort is not known by many partners, especially the smaller partners, the smaller companies do not know, as they develop products and projects without knowing anything. So what we have seen is that by the multiple discussion, this has been helping them to become aware of this model. And what we see is also, not only in this research, but in other research, is that the prediction by using the PMV model are not always very good. And I will not explain these graphics, but people, very often we have noticed that people feel better while the model, feel good while the model is predicting they should feel cold. And that is something that we see in many researches, and maybe an explanation is what you see here, that the mood has a big influence also on the feeling of comfort, just as what you have done before, if you have eaten or drank something warm or cold. Now, what was also a discovering between partners is that we saw in different buildings many complaints about the Monday morning comfort, which is very bad in winter, too cold on Monday morning, too hot in summer. And that is something that should give, we can say, with peak shaving, would be easy to start earlier at night, increasing the comfort and decreasing the grid congestion. So there are possibilities there to play with comfort of people, with people. The last example is about self-diagnosing HVAC system. I will skip this one and go to the next one, which is also about that. But one of the study was about finding out what are the most important faults in air handling units. And that is a research we did with SPI, amongst others. And we had a researcher doing AI research with text mining and clustering on all their work orders for the past 5 years, discovering this way what were the most important faults that have appeared in their systems that they placed all over the Netherlands. And you see here, for instance, the supply chain complete failure is one of the most often appearing faults. And a further simulation studies have shown which one of these faults causes the most increase in energy use. And you see here, and we have decided then to focus on the faults that causes the most energy use. How is this learning community working? Now, in fact, it's a lot of learning by doing. There are many working sessions, very often self-organized by the partners. All these people are very data and knowledge-minded, so they like to come together. And in the first phase, like in all these types of learning communities, it asks for a big involvement of the industry, because the industry has to understand that the people from the university generally do not know how to do the things. But after that, they can use the fruits of the work of the researcher. So there is a lot of forth and back, and what we also see happening is companies working together. So it's a kind of organic thing that we do not need to manage a lot. But I must say the fact that we have these 9 living labs, you see a few of them here, plus the use cases is helping very much because it's kind of breeding places, let's say. And if one company is doing something and the other not, then they are questioning themselves. Of course, next to that, we have public webinars in which the results of the research are explained. The public webinars can be followed live, but also found on the website. And very important for us is the development of a knowledge platform and of a way to share data and codes. I'm coming to an end. Branch for Building is publicly funded, and by that we have said we want to use the FAIR principle, so as open as possible and only closed when necessary. We are developing all our historical data set from the building management system are placed on a protected SharePoint. The live data from all these buildings come on in the Kafka platform, and the code is saved on the GitLab directory. And we have public pages and private consortium pages. And of course, for some use case, there is nothing public. This is now being built because the project is 2 years old, and we are at half, so we are now have first results that we can build on it. And as it comes to the learning community, the knowledge platform, the knowledge platform is the only digital tool that we are developing. It's a mix of, it's blended learning, so it's a mix of reports, presentations, videos, interviews on different subjects. And in fact, we have what you see in blue is the knowledge that is aimed for people who want data scientists that want to understand how it works in the HVAC systems, for HVAC engineers that want to know more about data, for facility managers that want to know what they can do. And then in orange, there are modules to go in depth in the different themes. And we have in between the green one, which is about commissioning and quick wins, because it's in general no point to make a fantastic AI thing while the installation, the equipment itself is not well installed or designed. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Rita. So I invite all the speakers in this session to join me on the stage, just to have 5-10 minutes interactive discussion with the audience. Okay, so trainings, upskilling, reskilling, it's a very hot topic these days. So Amandine, I saw that all build-up skills projects are trying to deliver roadmaps for education, for let's say finding barriers against this direction. My question would be, how do you use all the information delivered by these projects? There is someone in your institution trying to gather and to give some templates or some models which can be applied everywhere.
So for those national projects that I presented. Well, first of all, just to make it clear that we started this exercise in 2011. So we had 30 projects participating at the time. That was really good. Then we reopened this subject 2 years ago, and we we managed only to get 15 countries to embark in this initiative, but still it's a good number, I believe. This exercise is not made for us, it's mostly made for the countries. So what is part of the contractual obligations for these projects is also to have the roadmaps endorsed by key national stakeholders. So what will be the roadmaps in terms of measures has to be endorsed, and then action has to be taken and funding has to be secured. So this is, I think, one important point. We provided templates for the status quo analysis to try and have some comparability, but obviously this is quite difficult because the data that are available nationally, the statistics, for example, are quite different. In some cases you can really drill down to the specific professions, in other cases not so really possible, so you will have analyses that are made more in terms of broader qualifications. So it was quite a challenging exercise, but I still believe those projects are very valuable and have really a lot of information available for national policymakers.
Okay, thank you. We'll take a question from the audience. So if you have some interest in asking our speakers about topics presented. If not, I can continue with my questions. So for you, Livio, can you emphasize a little bit more REHVA initiative about the sustainability course? I think it's a very important step for REHVA to be present on this education market more evidently, and it is a good occasion to let know our audience about this important initiative.
Yes, thank you, Kathleen. What we are trying to do, as Kathleen was saying, is to be an hub, let me say that, for culture diffusion is in our, let's say, by law. And the practical application of this culture diffusion is just to try to start to design courses and to give courses, but mainly that to give courses, the design process is very important because courses are currently given by national association, but the aim is to try to have, first of all, something which is what we can call hot topics, then to ride the wave, to catch the opportunity to create something new which is not already on the market, and there is a need to reskill or upskill people in the field. And starting this process as community process, that means all together trying to develop a uniform among Europe, let's say, way of thinking in producing such an upgrade of culture, can be an effort we can share, and then we can apply at the beginning at the European level, but then we can go down to the national level, because as I said before, we know that mainly regarding, for instance, the PBD, never we have exactly the same application in each country. For that reason, it would be better than to have customized version at the national level, and mainly, as I said, for blue workers, because in that case, you need more practical application example, and this can be managed only, in my opinion, at the national level. But again, if we design at the upper level and we share, we have this practical community creation and common thinking, which is making Europe.
Okay. Once again, I'm asking if there are questions in the room. Yes, please.
Good morning, everybody. I'm unfortunately the only banker in the room, and when I'm listening to all of you, I fully understand why we can't finance this. Because we don't understand what you're talking about. Starting from the professor, all the way from the lady speaking from the Dutch university, to our Greek friend speaking about the buildings, and Amandine, there is a guy working with you, Quentin Hellings. used to be at BNP, and he told me he has recently joined Cinea, and he told me that the energy transition will only happen if bankers become engineers or the engineers become bankers. So my favor to all of you is try to keep this simple, because I'm by now, I can't, it's gibberish. It's completely ununderstandable for a normal person. And I can tell you from practice, the building managers are having exactly the same problems. We're bringing technologies, we are bringing gizmos, we are bringing this, we are bringing that, and the guys don't know how to operate it. They're standing there, they're looking at this thing like a cow standing in front of a television, and they say, wow, this is fantastic, but which button do I need to push? So, just a general comment, if you could please help us to make this happen, because nobody has spoken about finance. We've all spoken about great solutions, but who on earth is going to pay for it? And Mrs. van der Leyen comes up and says, we need 300 billion every year. Get it, or get the private sector involved. If the private sector doesn't understand, we've got an issue. So it's not a question per se to any of you, it's just a piece of thought. Please help me to understand what you're doing.
If you allow me a small joke, then you can change the channel for the television. But it's not our interest to change the channel, so we want you to stay on our channel. I leave the opportunity for.
If I just try to make this simple, first of all, I was trying to say that there is also economy. If you remember, there is the economic sustainability when you define the sustainability of a building. Then we know that we have to face the possibility to finance, because we cannot finance what is not feasible. That's clear for us. What I was trying also to stress the concept that when we are going to build a building, should be not a very huge skyscraper, 1 kilometer height, because this is not really useful for almost all people. But we have to look for a comfortable environment. This, I believe that's simple to understand also for bankers, that if instead to be in a nice building, they stay in a cave, probably they will understand a bit better what we are talking about. Then really we need simple example. Then we can explain better if you like, or anyone like to go through. Simple example, I agree that we need simple, direct example was a bit I tried to do at the beginning. But of course, later on, also you know in your business that you go deeper, you must use technical wording, and it's understandable for us. You're speaking sometime, as usual.
Okay, so unfortunately, our time is up. Sorry for not addressing you some other questions. I'm afraid that if I address other questions, we will record a, let's say, large delay. Thank you for your participation, for your interesting presentations, and we hope to have you again to our next summit. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Please don't leave the room. We will continue with another subsection of our summit. So the next topic is the Smart Readiness Indicator Observatory, and it is a nice subtitle launch before the lunch. It is an initiative of Smart Squared project. I leave the floor to two colleagues. So first of all, Sylvain Robert, working as a project advisor in Cinea, where he manages projects funded under the Horizon 2020 Energy Efficiency and Life Clean Energy Transition programs. Sylvain has experience in the energy efficiency and buildings fields, with a specific interest for buildings, smartness, and digitalization. So that's why you are here and presenting us SRI. So please.
Thank you so much, and thank you to the organization team, to REHVA, for this very nice invitation. It's a pleasure to be here with you. Well, you know, I was sitting just below the air conditioning vent, and I thought about, you know, the shoemaker's son who goes barefoot, and we are speaking, you know, we have specialists of indoor environment quality here, comfort, well-being, and it was literally freezing to death. So I'm glad it has been turned off. Anyhow, so the aim of this presentation is to give you an outline of the state of play of the deployment of a new instrument under the Energy Performance of Buildings Directive. It's called the Smart Readiness Indicator. So I'm going to try to make this presentation as simple as to understand as possible. And if you have any question, don't hesitate to ask. Well, basically, I just wish first to give a reminder about what the Smart Readiness Indicator is. We know that buildings are gradually becoming smarter. They include more and more digital technologies, and this is especially true for large non-residential buildings. And we think, I hope you think too, that such technologies overall are beneficial, for instance, to optimize energy management and to ensure occupants' comfort. And so the aim with the Smart Readiness Indicator is to have an instrument which allows to characterize and rate the smartness of a building. The approach, in a sense, is a bit similar to what we do with the energy performance certificate. So one sort of label that says how smart a building is. And so the SRI gives a set of scores expressed in percentages that says how smart a building is compared to what it could be, how smart it could be. And these scores cover 3 impact areas: energy savings, energy flexibility, and comfort and well-being. And then from the scores, a building can be associated to a smart readiness class, a bit like an energy class. So voilà, this is basically the rationale. And this is the timeline for defining this indicator. The process started several years ago. Actually, it started before the 2018 revision of the EPBD, with the first technical study supervised by the Commission. It was to explore the concept at the time. Then the 2018 revision of the EPBD came and empowered the Commission to develop the legal framework for this instrument in the form of a scheme which application would remain optional for member states. Then the Commission developed, in cooperation with the national representatives, the SRI Legal Act. It's a bit technical, but there was one act, a delegated act, focusing on the calculation of smart readiness, and one other act, an implementing act, addressing the technical arrangements for the implementation of the scheme. So these are basically 2 regulations that say how you shall implement the scheme in a member state when you want to implement it. And then once the acts entered into force, it was last quarter of 2020, several strands of action were launched to support the deployment of the scheme. First, on a voluntary basis, member states launched test phases at national level. Currently, 8 countries have done so, and we have good hope that more are going to join. Also, the Commission put in place a coordination and support framework in particular to support the national test phases, and also to monitor the deployment of the scheme, but also to engage stakeholders. And also, several EU-funded projects started under the Life Clean Energy Transition Programme to support the uptake of the SRI. And some of them directly support the test phases in the member states. Then, there could be potential evolutions in the future. We all know that most of us know that the EPBD is being negotiated, it's recast. And so, there is hope we'll have an agreement still this year, at which point we'll have full clarity on possible evolutions. Now that I've given the big picture, I'm going to zoom in on some important aspects. The first one is the national test phases. 8 national test phases were launched in Austria, Croatia, Czech Republic, Denmark, Finland, France, Slovenia, and Spain. National authorities, under the applicable regulations, have a lot of flexibility in defining the arrangements for those test phases. So they can vary from one country to the other in terms of scope and scale. But three main groups of approaches may be distinguished, and they are all relevant and all lead to useful feedback. The first one, in which member states focus on testing the calculation methodology. So usually they mandate a partner organization, typically a research institute, to do this work, which is a bit technical, and to give feedback. Then there are member states that involve external SRI assessors, so they go slightly beyond in terms of testing the implementation of the scheme, for instance, in terms of training needs. And then there are member states that fully or mostly rely on EU-funded projects to enroll the test phases. Another important aspect is the support provided by EU-funded projects, and this is mainly in the framework of the Life Clean Energy Transition Program. So I'm not going to detail the program, but just to refer to it, with 1 billion euros over 7 years, it focuses on energy efficiency, policy implementation, and market uptake of technologies and products, and it's basically the follow-up of H2020 energy efficiency for those who knew this program. As part of this Clean Energy Transition Program, 2 calls for projects relevant to the SRI were published. In 2021, the first one called Smart Ready, focusing entirely on supporting the uptake of the SRI, and in 2022, another one called Build Perform, addressing both energy performance certification and smart readiness, as well as other instruments, and the synergies between the instruments. And this represents a total of 14 million euros of funding for 7 projects over 4 years. More precisely, there are 7 projects which names are given here. The 4 first ones are the ones funded under Smart Ready, focusing strictly on the SRI, and the 3 last ones are the ones funded at Build Perform, so dealing with EPCs and SRI. And they involve 70 partners from across the EU, as you can see, and they represent a broad spectrum of expertise and contributions, both from the public and the private sector. I'm not going to detail the contents of those projects, of course, but just to mention that they cover a very nice and complementary set of activities. This includes adaptations and improvements to the SRI technical calculation framework, typically to enhance the catalog of smart ready services. Then delivering digital tools in order to support, for instance, the calculation of the smart readiness scores. But also they explore more advanced and innovative functionalities, e.g. to investigate the use of artificial intelligence to generate recommendations to improve the smartness of buildings. And of course, most of the projects, if not all, include policy support activities both at EU and national level, with complementary activities such as capacity building and supporting market uptake. One important remark is that the Life SRI projects provide, through their activities, a tailored support for the uptake of the SRI at the national level. For instance, to adapt the framework to the national needs, to the national context, and also to link with the financing of investments in smart building technologies, which, as was mentioned, is a key aspect. And I've already mentioned it, some national testing phases are directly implemented through LIFE projects. This is the case in Croatia, Slovenia, and Spain. So before closing this presentation, I wish to stress that DGNR and CINEA are supporting the coordination of the LIFE SRI projects through a dedicated clustering initiative, which started in 2022. This allows the projects to exchange and work jointly on topics of common interest, for instance, regarding the liaison with national authorities. And we have seen a lot of benefits in this increased trans-project work, and this is really our intention to continue supporting it. Voilà, this was all. Thanks a lot for your attention.
Thank you. Thank you, Sylvain, for this very clarifying presentation about smart readiness indicators, state of play. The last speaker, but not the least, is our colleague from REHVA office, and I can call him a junior expert, even if he's already an expert, Pablo Carnero Melero, who is Technical and EU Project Officer at REHVA. He's mainly working in energy performance in buildings assessments, certification schemes, and digitalization of the built environment. And he holds the Secretariat of REHVA Technical Research Committee. Pablo, you are invited to deliver your presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathleen, and thank you everybody for being here. I'll be quick because I have a tough spot because it's just before lunch. But thanks to Sylvain, all the context is given, so I just wanted to take the opportunity to welcome you all to take a look at the SRI Observatory. Link is very intuitive, sriobservatory.eu. There we have developed this REHVA through this Smart Square project, a site that envisions to be the reference site to stay up to date of the policy developments at the European level, especially after the trilogue end on the EPBD, but also to see the differences in the national implementation, and also to be able to centralize all the relevant scientific research from scientific journals on the topic of building smartness. So it's fully operational, the site. We have policy implementation, as I said, Europe at a country level, research with a digestion of the main results of the European projects, as Sylvain mentioned, not only from the live Smart Ready call, but also from Build Perform and previous projects embedded in the next gen EPC cluster. So I welcome you all to take a look at it. You can see country pages, as I said, with a digestion of the main results that each country, for instance, obtained in the test phase, and as the SRI implementation becomes, more tangible when the test phases are over, more detailed information will be able to be found there. So maybe if you're a representative of a country that would like to start the process of test phase, you're able to find a snapshot of what each country did, what was the timeline, how it was coordinated, and the overall assessment of the test phase. So yeah, I'm not going to take most of your time, but I welcome you to take a look at it and maybe explore further what can the SRI show, also from the terms of scientific research if you're interested. And we have made an effort to select the most relevant literature on the topic, and we are thinking already on upgrades, how to increase the financial details on the topic, how to finance building smartness. So yeah, happy to discuss either now in the questions or maybe afterwards. And the lunch will be around, so yeah, looking forward to be of support to you on this topic. Thank you very much.
We still have some minutes till the lunch, so I have a short question. Is this tool in development? I saw that not all the European countries are integrated in this tool.
Yeah, maybe that's more a question to Sylvain probably, but the countries that are shown here are the ones that either finished the test phase or requested the test phase or are in the process of developing the test phase. So the 8 countries that you can see here, oh sorry, there's a bit of a lag, are the 8 countries that Sylvain mentioned, right? So as more countries formally request the official test phase, we'll be able to implement that information here, and also on the European Commission website, that is currently where this site gets that information from. But yeah, the idea is to have everything in one site, as well as, for instance, the policy digestion of the different implementing acts, regulation acts. So everything is digested here. Intends to be in a user-friendly, interactive way to try to simplify the discourse so it can actually reach the relevant stakeholders. So yeah, that is the approach.
And there is a timeline for the other countries to join this observatory, and I'm, let's say, asking this question because we all know that in 2026 the non-residential buildings, big buildings, will be assessed from this SRI point of view.
So basically, the aim is to prevent you from going to the lunch. No, seriously, yeah, I mean, it all depends on the national authorities. They're the ones who decide whether they want to implement a test phase or not, and then they just have to say to the Commission, they have to say, look, I'm going to start to launch a test phase. I mean, we have informally signals from countries, I mean, not directly from countries, but from some projects who are liaising with the authorities, that some other countries could possibly launch test phases. But really, the decision is there. And as soon as we get this news, indeed, all updates are made on DG Energy's website, we'll say. And then there will be also, yeah, it's important, a report by the Commission about, you know, what's happening on the ground, through projects, through test phases, and so on. That will give a sort of synthesis of this. Does it answer your question?
Yes, just my concern regarding that deadline 2026 is something linked to SRI implementation and.
Yeah, but I mean it's part of the recast. So here, you know, I have
It's
someone from
just a
DG.
proposal.
If I say anything about the recast, I'm going to be
Good.
yeah told off
Not
by my
sure.
colleague.
Okay.
So we have to wait, basically. Yeah, be patient. This is my message. For the lunch too, be patient. That's okay.
Thank you so much for all presentations. In my opinion, we reached our goals for this part of the day. Thank you all for the attendance and